A lot of people tell me classical music feels a little intimidating or distant, or maybe not for them. But last week, something happened. Remind me how untrue this is. I was visiting a high school, which is often an arrangement before a big performance where presenters arrange a middle school or high school visit where I can directly interact with those students. And honestly, this is one of my favorite things to do. When I walk into this hallway of high school, which is absolute chaos, in the best way, growing up in Korea, most of the times our setting is where we sit in the same classroom, in fact, same desk an entire year, and teachers come to us instead of us moving. And this American high school hallway scene is something that I only seen in a movie and really felt like I was in the middle of the movie. When I walk in one of the classrooms that I immediately can tell they were like, oh, someone new, it's exciting. And others kind of questioning why this classical pianist is in our classroom today, some kind of strange look. For most of my life, I was living in this bubble where surrounded by those people who already love classical music. I started piano when I was 4 years old, and then I went to art high school where I already majored in piano in South Korea, where my friends were major in violin, cello, or sometimes Korean traditional instruments. But then I went on to undergrad, master's, and doctorate in piano performance in Indiana University, where again, I surrounded by these people and friends who absolutely love classical music. And we don't often talk about why we love classical music. It's because we just did. There's no validation or reshaping needed. But then when I started to perform outside of academia with the general audiences, and I started to realize one important thing, which is that general public was not really introduced to classical music, or no one really talked about how to listen to classical music in the same way I was introduced to classical music in early on. So when I giving them some kind of context, I can literally see the lights lit up and they connect. So in that classroom of high school, I asked maybe about 50 of people in the classroom and asked how many of them either listened to classical music or attended live classical concert. And maybe 2 out of 50 kind of really shyly raised their hand. And then I also wondered if they were ever talk about how to listen classical music or how to appreciate it. So today I want to share the same ideas that I share with these high school students. So hopefully, if you want to get to know more about this beauty of classical music, this is how I would start. Classical music comes with different kind of flavors or different mediums. It can be orchestral, chamber music, different kind of combination of chamber music. It can be voice with piano or cello with piano, violin or French horn or solo piano or voice and opera. There's so many different kind of combination of mediums. I highly recommend for you to choose one or two mediums and stick with those two before you explore something further. It's just like you figuring out your favorite kind of cappuccino in which coffee shop. So whenever you go to different coffee shop, just order always either cappuccino or cafe latte to discover which coffee shop do you love the most, or what kind of combination of milk and form and coffee. So I highly recommend for you to start something familiar so before you go to something unfamiliar. Tip number 2 is become a super fan of a few of classical musicians. I mean, there are so many amazing classical musicians living right now in this world. And I absolutely love Michiko Uchida's Mozart interpretation. And every chance I get to hear her in person, I would be there in a heartbeat. I always wanted to hear Maria Perez live concert, but unfortunately I heard recently she's just retired. But I really appreciate her music making even through the recordings. Follow or choose several. It doesn't matter it's really world famous or not. Just few of classical musicians and follow their journey and let them be a guide of your classical music journey. Honestly, several of my absolute favorite concerts that I attended are by my classical musicians friends in a doctor's program or even beyond, because I know them personally, and somehow understanding and feeling closer to the person and the performer makes your experience with classical music much deeper. And I highly recommend for you to choose several musicians and listen to their recording and listen to their YouTube or follow their Instagram. And if they really perform in your area, go there and listen to it in person. I bet that experience whole another different dimension than just random musicians that you never heard of. Tip number 3 is pick one piece that you love and listen to many different versions of it. It is almost like getting to know a person through different moods and stories. Interestingly, classical music it's something where the more you listen to it, more you intimately have a deeper relationship, the more you want to listen to it. I never heard this comment like, oh, I know that piece so well. I listened to it many times, so I don't have to go to this concert and to listen to it again. So the opposite is true. If you love Beethoven Fifth Symphony, then your local orchestra plays that piece again, you're like, oh, I'm so excited I get to listen to that live once again. So I highly recommend to get into several of maybe the most loved classical repertoire and search for it and choose one that is speak to you and listen to many variety of versions of it, and you will be surprised how different each performance is. And go to live performances, and this music is almost amplified once you hear in person. Of course, if you're living in rural area, that it's almost impossible to listen to classical music live, then maybe only YouTube videos can suffice. But if you have a chance to listen to it in person, that live feeling of sharing, it's so different than the recording. Even I played exactly same repertoire 2 days in a row in the two exact same space and two exact same piano and in front of maybe two exact same audiences, my performance will be completely different because we are living in the present moment. And I think the beauty of classical music is shared in the very moment. And I highly recommend for you to give yourself a gift of these hours of receiving. And whenever I go to live performances, I really feel like I'm giving myself a gift of experience and just let the music soak into my soul and let it guide me in no distraction of phones, or I just simply be there. And I wish that you could have that experience in many, many times in your life. Whenever you are listening to classical music, I encourage you to be an active listener. What does it mean to be an active listener? It is imagine what would composer would be doing or feeling during that time. Just have a perspective composer at times. Or if the music opened the door to some kind of memory of your life or person or stories or the movie, follow that channel and continue to follow. Or sometimes imagine what it like to be a performer on that stage and have that perspective in that. Just close your eyes and have the image arrive to your mind, or so you kind of follow this music and let it do what it wants to do. So that is active listening. And sometimes people are like, well, I was thinking completely unrelated things, and I welcome that. If that music wander your mind, then let it wander and follow that too. Maybe that music is somehow wanted to find that complexity of our mindsets or thoughts and let it loose in those moments. So I highly recommend for you to be just a simply listener of yourself or the music and follow actively. And of course, if you become more sophisticated listener of classical music, or if you know that piece so well, you are kind of anticipating the climax of the piece or the moments that you love. And it is kind of like building a sonic structure of the building in an abstract sense. And we're going to different trails together in a sonic sense. I mean, because of that reason, I think it is really difficult for the fellow audiences whenever we have a cell phone interruptions or the loud cough, because we're just building this sonic structure together in live form with the performer and then the audience, and those interruptions can crash that structure in a second. But that's a whole different topic altogether. But I want you to let your mind to be there with the music, and your as much as important role as the performer in order to receive and actively follow that. Lastly, the best way to appreciate classical music is learn an instrument. I mean, we just talked about how to listen or how to get closer to the classical music, but imagine you are the one who creates the music and you are the one who get to cook rather than just eat. And eat just opens a whole different palette of sound and an experience of life altogether. And often my students learn a piece of music and they listen to some other performers' recording of it. And they said, they are missing out a lot of these corners that I like to express, and their version just go so quickly and I don't get to appreciate or enjoy. And just because when we learn an instrument, a piece of music, we're looking at each corner of details so intimately and in many different angles. And that's a really beautiful way of appreciating classical music. And once you do that, once you try to create a music on your own, when you listen to now someone else perform, your appreciation of this art form is like 10 times better. So I think that one of the best way appreciate classical music is to learn an instrument. And what a wonderful way to spend the time with yourself and create a music and feel this space and this universe with the beautiful music. After the school visit, many of students came to my live concert at that weekend and sent me a letter or note thanking me. And this experience of live music really surprised them in a best way, and thanking me that it opened a whole new gate or to their life moving forward. And I appreciate those notes so much. Maybe I didn't change the world, but I believe that I touched the hearts in a very small but very impactful way. And if you follow or allow yourself the classical music enter into your life, and I'm sure that you will feel the same. And I feel that classical music is there for all of us to appreciate and living our time. And, this is one of the best way to really connect with ourselves. And because of that connection, we connect better with others too. I will link one of my performance of Piazzolla's River Tango. If you are not familiar with the classical music yet, I call it as a candy, like a dessert, very easy listening. And I want you to listen to this recording and think it actively what reminds you of, what kind of story, what kind of memory it brings you. And, whatever that is, follow that too. So I hope you enjoy this, and I will see you next time. 안녕.